If you're trying to blame the lyrics, if you're trying to blame broader culture around hip-hop and rap music in general for the problem, you're not helping anybody. You are sidestepping the actual problem for moral victories for whatever agenda you might have. So unfortunately, Travis Scott's Astroworld tour has taken a turn for the worst. At least 8 dead and many injured at Astroworld Festival in Houston, Texas. This happened, I believe, technically as of this recording last night. Today's November 6th, Saturday. I think it was the night of November 5th. At least 8 people are dead and many others injured after a crowd surged forward toward a stage at the Astroworld Festival in Houston on Friday night. Here's what we know. At least 8 people are dead and many others were injured after a crowd surged forward as rapper Travis Scott was on stage at the festival on Friday night, officials said. The event's livestream showed Scott pause his performance to look on in confusion as an ambulance with lights flashing pulled into the venue. The festival ended at 10:10 p.m. local time, Mayor Sylvester Turner said during a news conference Saturday. Quote, "We had scores of individuals that were injured," Houston Fire Chief San Pena said during a news conference early Saturday morning. About 50,000 people were at the sold-out outdoor music festival at NRG Park, the stadium complex where the Astrodome and the NRG Stadium stand, when the incident happened just after 9 p.m. Central Time, officials said. Quote, "The crowd, for whatever reason, began to push and surge toward the front of the stage, which caused the people in the front to be compressed. They were unable to escape that situation," Pena told CNN Saturday morning. There are a bunch of people who were at this show, ostensibly, who are sharing their experiences having been there. And I read some of them. A lot of what's being described is like gruesome, like grisly, like bodies piled on top of each other, people stepping over each other. It's not a fun sight. And this isn't the first time that something like this has happened at a live show. But there are usually safeguards put in place to prevent this kind of thing from happening. And there are examples of this happening in the past where the performers have noticed that somebody in the crowd has fallen down or whatever, or they've been notified about it, and they stop the performance so that people can clear a path for medical personnel to actually help people out. This has happened before. I believe this is a video. I don't know who the performers are here, but I just found this to be a decent example of it.
Okay, everybody back up. There seems to be a medical issue. Make some room so the professionals can get in there, guys.
Is that Corey Taylor?
Hold on.
People are saying yes.
Hold on. Let's make sure she's okay. Is it he or she? Is it he? Okay.
Even trying to gender them correctly. What a class act.
Hold on. You all right, kid? Hold on. Take it easy, dude. Is everybody okay in there? Is everybody good? All right, guys, let me know as soon as we can if he's okay. All right? Keep us fucking posted.
So this is a good way to go about this happening, but I don't know, it's hard to tell. I don't know how big this venue is, but it does not look or sound very big. It does look like a smaller venue, where the Travis Scott venue at NRG Park looked a lot bigger. So there are considerations to be made there. One of the big problems with this seems to be a confluence of factors. There's a lot of people trying to blame this all on Travis Scott. I think that's a bit unfair. There is a certain amount you can do as a performer, like the video we just saw, where things will happen, like in a sea of people, things will happen. If you notice it, you can try to draw attention to it. You can try to get the people in the audience to pay attention to you to, clear a path. But we're hearing reports about this, that there were so many people that you couldn't move. Like you were packed in there like sardines. So I don't know if any reports have gone out about potentially overbooking or people getting in without having paid, which doesn't allow you to account for exactly how many people are supposed to be in that area. It's hard to say, but what I wanted to show you about this as well was this clip that's been circulating. This is a Reuters tweet. Fans rushed the entrance gates to rap star Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival in Houston earlier in the day before a stampede of fans killed at least 8 people and injured scores of others. So if we look at this, it does not bode well for what occurred in the future. Like, people are jumping through security. People are literally pushing over barricades. So it seems almost impossible to me that security could possibly account for the amount of people that were going to be at the venue. That's just my speculation, but if this many people are running through, going over security barricades, going around security even, it just seems possible to me that it would be very difficult to account for just how many people would be in attendance. And because of that, it's very possible that there were too many people at the venue than there should have been. But I don't know if we have any official reports from the investigation substantiating that. But this is not very good. This is not good. Now, there's a lot of blame to be had for the security. There's a lot of blame to be had for the organizers of the event, of the management and managers of the park that it was held at, NRG Park. You would talk about also exit flow and stuff like that. Hypergressive put out a pretty good tweet about it. My editor shouts out, "Every time I hear about human crush or crowd surge, it's the most terrifying thing, and more often than not, it's the fault of venues either booking over capacity or not having enough exits to handle crowd flow." And that seems to be part of the confluence of factors that led to this tragic incident. Now, that being said, I feel like people are kind of jumping the gun when they're trying to overtly blame Travis Scott. Now, there is a video that came out that was taken by one of the concert goers, where essentially what's happening is that Travis Scott is on this podium looking stand in the middle of a crowd at the very top of it, and he's just staring blankly at a person's limp body, either unconscious or passed away, being crowd surfed out, because that's like the only way you could exit that packed like sardines scenario, and he's just staring at the person, and then continues with the show. Now, what's complicated about a situation like this is because there are so many people in the audience. People will also bring up, oh, well, there were people screaming, "Stop the show, stop the show." A lot of the time there are studio like monitors, like speakers pointed at you to drown out crowd noise so you can hear the sounds of your own music. So you can make sure you're in time with the music, so you can make sure that if you're playing instruments, the instruments sound good. Talent will use in-ear monitors that allow them to hear their music as well, because crowds are so loud that it's actually hard to hear your music. There's a famous event of a Beatles concert where they literally couldn't hear their own instruments over the roar of the crowd, so they had to start doing things like that. So if you're Travis Scott in this instance, and there are so many different people in the crowd, perhaps more than there should have been, it's gonna be difficult. Like if you hear screams or whatever, you're gonna be expecting people to shout, scream, etc., etc. Even like blood-curdling screams. There are like fans who have screamed like that because they're so excited to see their favorite performer live, or they like literally sound like they're in pain, but they're just screaming out of excitement. It's in that moment, it's hard to tell exactly what's happening. The only way that I think Travis Scott could share a big share of the blame here, now I think he does share some of it, but I think the way he would share more of the blame if there was someone in his ear, like a producer or manager or security of the show, telling him, "Stop the show, pause the show, there's some shit going on, you know, we got to figure this out before we proceed," and he didn't do it then I think he has some more of the blame to share there. But in that situation, with that sea of people, it seems very difficult to expect him to do much of anything. And people will be like, oh, what if there was ambulance that showed up to the show? Ambulances show up to shows all the time. There are people who will pass out because they're not drinking enough water, they're not hydrated enough, perhaps heat exhaustion. There are ambulances and medical teams that arrive to shows all the time. So like even that is not enough to stop the show. Now, there is a video as well. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for, John Brongus. Thank you. So we can watch this real quick. Quote, "There's somebody dead. Stop the show, stop the show, stop the show." And the Astroworld show continued. Now, this is a person going up to what looks like a camera guy, a camera operator. Now, that camera operator could relay this information to other people, but he's just a camera operator. I don't know if he's security. I don't know if he's just camera. I don't know exactly what he's there to do, but we could watch this.
That's okay with you real quick. Please, let's do it.
Now, unfortunately, I can't listen to too much of the audio because I could get in trouble with DMCA, etc. But two people went up to this camera operator. His job here, as far as I'm aware, he is literally just there to film the event. He's not security. He's not medical personnel. Now, of course, he has a walkie-talkie on him. He could probably get in contact with other people, or you would hope he could get into contact with other people to try to get the show to put on pause, to help the people that need the help. So, of course, you would hope that he would do more, but it's not necessarily his job. But, of course, we would hope he would do more. See the moment Travis Scott pauses Astroworld show after spotting an ambulance. I do want to see this. Like you see the sea of people. Like, it's a sea, a literal sea of people. For being the performer in this situation, I would imagine it would be very difficult to even ascertain what is happening outside of the blur of faces and limbs you can see here. Now, he does share blame because of better conduct we've seen from other performers, but he's not the only person to blame here. That's the only thing I wanted to make clear. I hope I made that clear. Especially with stage lights in your face. Yeah, especially with in-ear monitors and stage monitors in your ear drowning out crowd noise so you can hear your instrumental, you know? Look at this. Look at this venue. That is a massive crowd. Like, imagine being a single person on this stage. At this point, you're like a couple pixels. And, like, there's some crazy shit happening over here. It is incredibly hard for me to understand that Travis Scott could reasonably understand what's happening here. What you need in place here is not just a performer being aware of it happening. Just by seeing it, they need to be told. There needs to be security at the venue watching over this. There needs to be cameras pointing at the crowd, being able to see this. There needs to be coordination between all security and management of this venue in the same understanding to get security and medical personnel where they need to be. Those kinds of crowds are really bad. I've been to Georgia concerts at airports where it's near impossible to leave. If there's an emergency, you're fucked. Yeah, it's not good. GA as in general admission. Oh, not Georgia. Regardless. I'm sure general admission events happen in Georgia as well, so I'm technically correct. Similarly, I can imagine that it would be difficult when you've probably done hundreds and hundreds of concerts. I would think that after a while, performers tend to get into somewhat of a flow state where the input from individual crowd members becomes less apparent. Yeah, if I try to put myself in the position of a performer at a show with a crowd size this big, it becomes incredibly hard to think that, like, I'm going to be able to pick out when shit's popping off. Like, I'm going to have to rely on security and other management personnel to deal with that. There are so many things that went wrong with this show. It's hard to peg blame on anybody. It's not just one person. I think people in these instances like to try to find a villain. They're trying to find a one person they can really get on and blame for everything. But unfortunately for those people in this case, there are a variety of people at fault. The venue is at fault. The organizers of the show are at fault. The security personnel are at fault. Travis Scott is at fault. Even some audience members can be at fault as well. There are some videos of people fighting each other in the venue. There are some videos of this dude jumping on like a medical cart, which is really messed up, which doesn't help in this situation. There's a lot of blame to be put around, and you can't just lump it all on one person, unfortunately. That is a very naive way to look at the situation. Now, I'm not saying Travis Scott doesn't have any blame to be shared. He definitely does, and that is my position. I'm just saying that there are other people that also share the blame, and there's only so much you as a performer can do in those situations. Travis Scott didn't handle it the way that Corey Taylor did in that video we saw before. You would have wished he would have, but there's really only so much you could do. And so apparently Travis Scott put out an apology, or rather a video addressing the tragedy at Astroworld Fest. This was on, I believe, his Instagram. So let's listen to this. We'll see.
I just want to send out prayers to the ones that was lost last night. We're actually working right now to identify the families so we can help assist them through this tough time. You know, my fans really mean the world to me, and I always just really want to leave them with a positive experience. And anytime I can make out, you know, anything that's going on, I stop the show and, help them get the help they need, I could just never imagine the severity of the situation. We've been working closely with everyone.
I'm sorry. All this could be genuine. It could be that he's trying to put on a show. There's no way to know. But like all of this, I don't think it's helping. But anyway.
Try to get to the bottom of this. The city of Houston, HPD, fire department, everyone to, help us figure this out. So if you have any information, please just contact your local authorities. Everybody continue to just keep your prayers. I mean, I'm honestly just devastated, and I could never imagine anything like this just happening. And I'm gonna do everything I can to keep you guys updated and just keep you guys informed on what's going on. Love you all.
I think regardless of your perceptions of his sincerity or not, I hope he's being truthful here. I hope he is understanding of the mistakes that were made, not only on his part, like I say, on the venue, on the organizers of the event, of the security team. I hope he understands the mistakes that were made and it never happens again. Or if it does, something similar happens again, they're able to stop the problems before they turn into what has happened this time. People will always be skeptical about the sincerity of a person's apology in this instance. The only way we could possibly know at this point, we just have to see how much Travis Scott does, how much the organizers of the venue and everybody else involved in the problem problem does to right the wrongs of what have happened here. And that's the only way we can substantiate just how truthful or how genuine he's being here. This is the Stampede Wikipedia article under the crushes, the crowd crush segment. Crushes are very often referred to as stampedes, but unlike true stampedes, they can cause many deaths. Crowd density is more important than size. A density of 4 people per square meter begins to be dangerous, even if the crowd is not very large. This is why, by the way, a lot of venues have fire codes and whatnot for how many people can be in a place, max capacity. Like, for instance, if you've ever been to like a movie theater, for instance, you will see that there will be markers like placards on the wall saying maximum occupancy, however many people. And the reason for this is that if too many people are in a small space, it becomes very difficult for people to move. Should an accident occur, should emergency personnel be needed, they may not be able to make their way to where they are needed. People may not be able to exit the proper exits should an emergency happen, like a fire, for instance, in a theater. So that's why those kinds of regulations exist. And like I say before, if people are jumping the line and getting into the venue without paying, it's hard to account for them from the organizer's side. So you would have security stop them from being able to do that, you know? A crowd crush, as such, ensues when a large crowd is trying to move in a certain direction to reach an objective, in this case, rushing toward the stage where Travis Scott was performing, or in response to the need to move forwards due to events at the back, with those at the back pushing forward not knowing that those in the front are being crushed underfoot. This may happen if an exit expected to be opened is blocked, and it does seem to be the case that there were not very well-defined exit paths at this venue, but the investigations into this will be able to hopefully substantiate that in the future as the story develops. The forces involved may be very large. Sometimes guardrails that can withstand 1,000 pounds of force are bent by the crushed crowd. A common aftermath of a crush with serious consequences is that those responsible for the event where the crush took place, authorities such as government bodies and news media, blame the crowd and the victims for being out of control and causing the crush, sometimes to the extent of a full cover-up. Later analysis, sometimes after those actually responsible have retired, many show that the disaster was largely caused, in the moral and legal rather than physical sense, by actions of those planning or in authority of the event, as in the Hillsborough disaster, which killed 97 football spectators. Actions by the crowd were blamed until investigations 2 decades later found manifold errors by those responsible for organizing and controlling the football event, with members of the crowd then being regarded as hapless victims. It seems like this is what happened at Astroworld. It seems like it was a crowd crush event, and like I say, when you're in that moment as the concert goer, it is very difficult to understand what best to do and when, which is usually why you would hope to have security in place to be able to guide people to better behavior and to fix any potential problems before they even happen. And it doesn't seem like that was there in a substantial enough way. But you can never expect people in this situation to be very rational actors. It is usually incumbent on the security, the event organizers, the people managing the venue, to make sure that safeguards in place so that things like this don't happen. That's where a large part of the blame is to be had here. Now, I'm not saying Travis Scott doesn't also share in the blame, but if you're only targeting Travis Scott in your condemnation, you're kind of a bit naive and ignorant to how these things even happen. One other thing that I did want to mention about all this is that during the peak of like a lot of metal and rock shows being a very popular thing in cities, there have actually been cities and like localities and whatnot that have put in place like ordinances and laws against moshing. And if it's seen happening at a venue, you could actually get the event shut down as a result and stuff like that. There are also have been people who've like tried to blame like the lyrics of a bunch of different metal performers or whatever for, you know, the lyrics being violent or whatever, and that causing people to be violent at the shows. I don't think that that's very substantiated. People could say that that could be the case for Travis Scott as well. Some people were posting lyrics for one of his songs. I don't think it's the lyrics. I don't think it's the culture. Those are like scapegoats that don't actually fix the problem. Like, I'm sure people have moshed at like very PC rock shows, or the lyrics are not bad, or the culture around the music is not, you know, seen to be bad. If you're trying to blame the lyrics of whatever is being said in Travis Scott's music, if you're trying to blame a broader culture around hip hop and rap music in general for the problem, you're not helping anybody. You are sidestepping the actual problem for like moral victories for whatever agenda you might have. Shows like this of groups who have like absolutely like terrible things in their lyrics have held shows where moshing has taken place, and there might be some injuries here and there, but nobody's dying. It has happened. People have died at shows like that. But if it was as bad of a problem as some like people like to moralize about, you would imagine that it would be more widespread. But it is a pretty reactionary stance, yeah. So once again, to reiterate, the people at blame here, the people at fault here are, in no certain order, Travis Scott shares part of the blame simply for not being cognizant and aware of the situation, though, like I said, there's only so much you can do, as well as he has encouraged people to like jump barriers and like try to get into concerts for free, stuff like that. That's not very good. You should not do that. And of course, you know, you would hope that he would stop the show to try to assess the situation. Travis Scott is to blame, though I don't know that he shares as much blame as a lot of other people are trying to make it out to be. The event organizers share a lot of the blame. The security personnel share a lot of the blame. And the management of the venue share a lot of the blame. Those are the main things that need to be addressed so that things like this never happen again. It is possible to have shows like this without these tragic incidents happening. But rest in peace to all people involved. It is a truly tragic story, especially for a space and music that I, you know, enjoy, hip hop and rap in general. And you never want to see it happen, and it should never happen, given correct preparations. It just seemed like a confluence of factors caused this tragedy, and the only thing we can do from this point is learn from it and try to do better. That's it. So it's been 2 days since the unfortunate Travis Scott Astroworld tragedy. This video was recorded 2 days ago. This right now is being recorded, 2 days later than that, obviously. Apparently, we've got some new information that I wanted to tack on as, things started moving forward in the investigations, etc. This is from Variety.com. Apparently, Travis Scott is going to refund all Astroworld attendees and cancels a Day in Vegas festival appearance, which was apparently slated to happen in the future. Travis Scott will not perform at this weekend's Day in Vegas festival. Variety has confirmed the headlining appearance at Las Vegas Festival Grounds was scheduled for Saturday, November 13th, less than a week after his own Astroworld Festival took place at Houston's NRG Park, where 8 attendees died, ranging in age from 14 to 17. In addition to this, we also have more information for who passed. Unfortunately, it truly is devastating. Very young people. All loss of life is devastating, but very young people who just wanted to have a good time at this show, potentially for like their favorite musical artist. And it was just the negligence of security, event organizers, Travis Scott, and the venue management that led to this. Sources describe Travis Scott as, quote, too distraught to play, and reveal that he will provide full refunds for all attendees who bought tickets to Astroworld. In the days after the tragedy, much has been learned about the sequence of events that led to the cardiac arrests of several concert goers, at least one stabbing of a police officer with a hypodermic needle. I still don't know how substantiated this claim is. I still don't know if anything else has come from that, other than the police saying that it happened, apparently. A lot of people are expressing skepticism around it. We just don't know. And what's interesting about this is that Metro.co.uk and others are reporting that apparently Travis Scott was, quote, warned about Astroworld crowd by Houston Police Chief before the deadly surge. Houston Police Chief Troy Finner confirmed that he visited the rapper in his trailer to, quote, voice concern about the crowd that had amassed for the Friday show at NRG Park. In a statement shared on Monday, Finner explained, quote, I met with Travis Scott and his head of security for a few moments last Friday prior to the main event. I asked Travis Scott and his team to work with HPD for all events over the weekend and to be mindful of his team's social media messaging on any unscheduled events. The meeting was brief and respectful and a chance for me to share my public safety as chief of police. So, and this just comes along with essentially to say that there was a warning before the main event that Travis Scott and his security team were given from the police chief of Houston, but the show went on. The statement comes after footage and social media posts trawled by the Houston Chronicle indicated people began collapsing by 9:38 p.m., nearly 40 minutes after Scott came on stage. Scott's promoter quickly agreed to stop the show. The 30-year-old rapper, Travis Scott, appeared to keep playing till the end of a 75-minute set at 10:15 p.m. So they were warned about it. The promoter agreed to stop the show, but it went on. Now, I don't know exactly why Travis Scott continued to play. Maybe there was a miscommunication. Maybe he just didn't care and wanted to continue the show. I don't know if we know anything more about that, unfortunately. All we can do is speculate by this point, which I try not to do. But anyway, that's just what is being referenced here. But apparently, according to Variety, Houston Police Chief Troy Finner has defended letting the show play out, saying that an abrupt halt could have caused a riot, but noted that the festival was not undermanned and that the number of officers on hand should have been sufficient to handle a crowd of 50,000 under normal circumstances, which is interesting because that's not what happened. Regardless, that's just a couple pieces of new information that we got that I figured we could splice into this video to give you some more updates on what's happened since. This video's conure callout is Iron Mage. Shouts out, you were the winner of the M on Animation's Steven Crowder's Nightmare tweet. Good to still have you here. If you'd like to be the next conure callout, all you gotta do is follow me on Twitter, @ConureCC. Retweet every video link that I put out because you just like my content that much and want the most amount of people to see it. You know, it's a cool idea. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, put all notifications on, helps me out a lot. Also, leave a like if you like, comment down below if you think I'm wrong or whatever, and have a great day.